Alright, so this is going to be part 1 to what if Deku had Perfect Cell's powers. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro. Alright, so before we start this what if, I would like to do a little explanation on this video. So basically, when I say that he has his powers, we're going to make it as a quirk and not really have to do much with ki. Alright, so it's not like Deku will have ki, but he will have energy shots and things like that. They'll just be within, they'll still go by the laws and rules of the My Hero universe and things like that. Also, we're not going to go off of Dragon Ball scaling. We're going to keep it within the kind of limits of, well, the My Hero universe, because if we make it, if he was literally 1-to-1 with Cell, then you're putting a solar system buster in a world where, one of the strongest hero could barely or can take out a city block. So he would be infinitely stronger than everyone else in the series. So we're not going to really do that. So, but instead, we're going to keep it within the, like I said before, we're going to keep it within the kind of restrictions of the My Hero universe. So yeah. So our story actually begins before Deku is actually born, or a little bit before. So this is still during a time where Deku's mom Inko would be pregnant, and let's say his father, I think his name was Hiyashi or something like that. So his father works overseas, and let's say that he works for a kind of biological or a biotech company, right? And let's say he is one of the higher ups at this company, or a head researcher, because we don't really know what Deku's dad really does for a living. We just know that he works overseas. But in this what if, he's going to be part of some sort of tech company, some biotech company, and basically he's going to be a head researcher. So because he is very involved with genetics and things like that, I believe that he would have tested the his child, or Deku, when he's still in the womb. So this would be around, I wouldn't say like any specific state in the pregnancy, but it'd be a pretty early state. And because of the advanced technology that they have, Hiyashi would know that when this child is born, that child being Deku, he's going to be born quirkless. So he knows how important quirks are in this society. So this also gives him a chance to test his new research out. Although it might be a little bit messed up testing it on your own son, but he has no doubt in his mind that this is going to work. So he takes the genetic code from multiple quirk users and puts it into Deku, basically. So what happens is that Hiyashi takes genetic code from a bunch of people. They're not super high tier like people. They're just those who volunteered. Basically, what happened is that the company, gave out an ad, right? And people who wanted quick cash would come, and he would check their quirks, and he would take a sample of their, DNA. And that's how he was able to collect so much different DNA from different people. So all the quirks that Deku is gonna have is because of what Hiyashi did. So what he does after this is that he basically implants those genetic materials and alters Deku's genome so that he has all these powers. So Deku gets these quirks artificially, since they're not natural. So after he's born, he doesn't look normal, right? At least for like a standard human. He doesn't stand out too much compared to other people who have mutation quirks. So they aren't really too worried about that. So what I would think Deku would look like in his kind of first form, since he would be he's not really in his larva, but he's in a kind of combination of both the first form and like a kind of baby human kind of form, if that makes sense. So he is more human. He looks more humanoid than Cell normally does, since it is within the My Hero world. So yeah. So before we get any further, I'll explain a few of Cell's powers, so people know what I'm talking about. So there's the basics. He's able to shoot energy beams and blasts. He's also able to sense ki and things like that. And he's also able to have. He has a bunch of different fighting styles, as well as being able to pick up new ones pretty fast. He can blind people using solar flare, cut people using destructo disc. He can regenerate. That's a big thing about it. It only takes one nucleus of a cell for him to regenerate, and he gets back to full health. He's able to get stronger after near-death experiences like Saiyans. He is also able to absorb people using his tail, whether it be just absorbing some of the energy through their arm, or basically consuming him all with his tail. He's able to fly. Let's see what else. He could shoot lasers out of his eyes. He can have multiple of themselves, or basically duplicate himself. He could have instant transmission. He can self-destruct. And there's more things that he could do. He could also mimic voices and things like that. There's a lot of things that Cell can do, and I'll bring those up when it gets to those parts in the story. But right now, we're just gonna go with a few of them, and I'm not gonna really introduce too many because they won't really, he won't have a reason to use some of these. But he would have a lot of these powers due to what I said before with the different quirks that Hiyashi would have gave him. So yeah. So we would skip a few years to when Deku is 4, and this is when he's in basically, I think it's preschool. So people would know that Deku has a quirk since they think it's a mutation quirk, which is technically true. So Deku wouldn't have that kind of beak that first form Cell would have. He has more of a humanoid look to him. But he has some of those traits from Cell, like the tail and the wings and the green kind of skins with spots. So Deku doesn't really, he's not really an outcast in this one, since he does have a quirk, even though it is a mutation quirk. No one really cares about those in particular, but his father did tell him that he has a lot of different quirks. But for the sake of everyone, he would say that to call his quirk Ultimate Life Form, or I don't know what I should call the quirk. I think I should call it either Perfect Life Form or Ultimate Life Form, or something to that effect. Something with either Ultimate or Perfect, since that's the entire plot of Cell. So you guys can tell me down below whether or not you like that kind of name. So when people ask, what's his kind of quirk, he would say perfect. I think he would say Ultimate Life Form, and they would be like, "Wow, that sounds really cool. What does it do?" And Deku would take a long time to kind of explain it, but he would basically say he could do almost anything that a person can do, which would be a lot. Obviously, there's basic things that Cell has, like super strength as well as super speed. So I'm not going to really mention those kind of things because they're kind of insignificant. So at first, we're not going to give all the powers to Deku at once, because he would have to somewhat unlock it through some training. So in this one, Deku would be a lot taller, being around... by the time he is in, middle school, he should be around 6 feet. And that's at the beginning, since I believe at the highest Cell is, I think he's 13 feet in his semi-perfect form, and he's 7 feet in his perfect form. So let's get back to when he's in, kindergarten. So Deku really wouldn't make. He would be kind of shy because he wouldn't know the extent of his power, as well as people not really approaching him because of his looks. But at the same time, he's not really bullied for it, and he is shown to be strong since he does have those basic kind of powers like super strength and super speed. And when Bakugo gets his powers, people are really impressed, and so is Deku. But this is when Bakugo basically challenges Deku to a fight because for a long time, people were really impressed by Deku, and what happens is that Bakugo really wants to show off his power. So it's not like he's doing this out of malice, but instead doing it because he wants to show off. So it's not really like any like there's no ulterior motive, I guess. I could say there's no malice behind it. So he would fight Bakugo, and this is when Deku would start using things like energy beams. So he would do that kind of I forgot what it was called. I think they're called like finger shots or something like that. Basically, he's like shooting lasers out of his fingers as Bakugo is trying to use his explosion. Bakugo ends up losing the fight because Deku's just too fast for him. He's able to shoot multiple at the same time and things like that. So we would skip a few years, this being the end of middle school, and Deku's actually deciding to go home. So Bakugo and Deku actually are friends in this one because they both respect each other's strength, and Deku isn't really a person to be cruel to someone. He still has a similar personality to what he has in the anime, but he's not really he doesn't have that like, low self-esteem that he has in the anime. Yeah, he does have confidence, and I guess he'd be like quiet yet really kind to people. He's not shy to any means or anything like that. And I think at this point, how the way that Deku appears is that he's similar to that of Semi-Perfect Cell. At this point, I would believe, or I guess he would still be Imperfect Cell, which would be the small kind of insect-looking one. So yeah, so this is when everyone would basically the teacher would come into the class and tell everyone what they want to do with their lives after middle school. And this is when he announces that 2 students are actually deciding on going to UA, that being Bakugo and Midoriya. So Bakugo would go up to Deku and basically like, oh, you're going, he would basically say like, oh, you plan on going to UA as well? And Deku would be like, yeah, I got a recommendation through his father, because I think his father would have that kind of influence, at least in this what if, so he would be able to do that. So the both of them would tell each other good luck so that they could both go into UA, and they would go their different ways, or their separate ways, since Deku would still go to that shortcut that he would go in the anime. And this is when he would sense something coming, because instead of ki sensing, we would give him kind of a general kind of life sensing kind of ability, since like I said before, this is going off the rules of My Hero and not really that of Dragon Ball. So there isn't really ki in this universe, so we're just gonna have this kind of life force, I guess, in the background that people give off. So he wouldn't be able to detect some people like robots, and maybe some quirks would nullify this. So after this, this is when the kind of sludge villain would come out of the sewers, and Deku would know at this point what would happen. So he would back off, and this is when he would use his telekinesis to pick up the sludge villain. The sludge villain wouldn't really know what to do. He'd be like, hey kid, what are you doing? Like, and then he sees who's in front of him, and he'd be surprised because Deku still kind of looks like, it's kind of hard to explain because he is very tall for his age, since he does have those kind of genetics, but he isn't like too built because he's still in that kind of semi-perfect form. And I guess I don't know how I should do the forms in this one. Should it be just like Deku, when he unlocks a new form, should he just always have it on, or should it be like a transformation quirk? So you guys can tell me down below whether or not it should be like that. So after this happens, this is when Deku doesn't really say anything, and he actually does a psychic crash, I believe it's called. It's the move that Cell does when he basically shapes the kind of rocks or the parts of the mountain and makes them into tiles for the Cell games, that kind of slashing effect. So this is what Deku would do. He would have both basically two arms outwards, basically as if he was like instructing a orchestra almost. That kind of movement with his hands, and he would basically slice up the sludge villain, which really wouldn't do anything, and it wasn't really expected to. So Deku at this point, he's just holding on to the villain and hopes that a hero will come and basically contain him. So after this is done for a bit, he has him for a little bit, and this is when All Might actually comes, and the sludge villain is still conscious at this point, and he's basically begging for Deku to basically let him go. Deku denies this since he is a villain and tried to attack him. When All Might eventually comes here, he looks at this kid basically. Well, he at first he would think it would be like a young adult, and then he would realize it was a kid, and he would thank the kid for holding the kind of sludge villain and basically thank him for it. He would ask him his name, and he would tell him that it's Izuku Midoriya. And I think in this one, Deku would still be a fan of All Might, since most people in the My Hero universe are. And he wouldn't really idolize him too much, but he still kind of would, since he is the #1 hero. So he wouldn't be too shy about asking for his autograph, which he would ask anyways. So as this is done, this is when All Might would ask him what's his kind of quirk and what's it called, and he would say that it's called Ultimate Life Form, and it lets him do almost it gives him a lot of abilities such as telekinesis. He really explain it too much, since it is kind of hard to explain it fully. So yeah, All Might would then basically do a Detroit Smash, knocking out the villain and basically leaving while giving thanks to Deku. Deku would get his autograph, and they wouldn't really talk to each other or they wouldn't really have a reason for him to stay any longer and make him reveal his weakness, I guess. So Deku would have went home and basically get ready for the exam, or the recommendation exam. So Deku would basically do a little bit of both like studying and also physical training. His dad would basically tell him some other things about his quirk, such as the ability to absorb things, mostly other people. I guess Deku would be able to absorb things like trees somewhat, or it's kind of weird how Cell's kind of absorption works, because we don't really know the limits. We know it works on like organic, like people, but could it work on like lower things like trees or things like that? So we don't really know, but it is maybe possible, since in the Dragon Ball universe everything has ki, every living thing at least. This is also when his dad would tell him, because at this point his father would explain to him how he was able to get so many quirks and explain all the lists of the quirks that he would have. And Deku would be kind of shocked, since he wouldn't know that his quirks were artificial, but at the same time he kind of knew something was up, since his father works at a kind of biotech company, as well as having so many quirks. So he kind of put the two together. so he isn't too shocked about this. So he starts trying to kind of unlock each kind of quirk, and basically the way that he would do this is through his kind of regeneration. So he would basically push himself to the brink of where his muscles would be basically collapse on him. His muscles would tear a lot, giving him the ability to regenerate. And after regenerating, he would just keep on getting stronger and stronger, since every time, the way that you gain muscles by them being shredded, right? You basically tear your muscles and they grow back, and when they grow back stronger and bigger, right? That's how you gain muscle. So that's basically how Deku would know about the kind of, because he already knows the list, but through this he's able to gain more kind of strength, right? So I believe at this point he would have at least the strength around 30%, or let's say he would have around 50% of All Might's All for One, or One for All. So after this kind of week of, or not week, after the 10 months of basic training, this is when he would get to the entry exams for the recommendation exams, I guess. So they would still do those basic kind of things. They don't really explain what they do for the recommendations, but we could tell that it's a lot of physical stuff, and it's a lot different than the kind of general kind of populace's entry exam. So we know that there was a lot of physical training there, so Deku would get pretty much first place in most of those events. And then we get to the race that has basically everyone there. So Deku would basically get first because he'd be able to use instant transmission, which is one of the kind of powers that Cell has. So he'd be able to do so. He'd be able to instantly transport to... basically what would happen is that he would wait for the other contestants to get as far as they could, and right before they would... when they would be near the finish line, this is when he would teleport to one of the contestants. Basically, probably Yuarashi, since he'd be further along than Todoroki. So after this was done, this is when Deku would use his super strength to basically push him or run really fast, and he would use his wings to kind of glide him towards it. Because I'm pretty sure first form Cell has wings. So he'd be able to get there in first place, since he would have a lot of he'd be really fast, right? So this is actually going to be the end of the video, so you guys can tell me whether or not you like this what if, and if you guys want me to do any more. So with that being said, this is going to be the end of the video. So yeah,